there something you're waiting? No. Oh, okay. Just making sure you guys all set. Guess we're sit.
Possibly. Yeah, I think that's it. I can't see it. I can see the press.
This one is the back door.
We did.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Pawlenty is here this morning. We appreciate him coming in to Council Bluffs. He's going to be here for a meet and greet and kind of update us on the campaign and how things are going. He'll also give us some information on the straw poll event coming up. So we're going to let him address you this morning and look forward to having him speak to us. Thank you. There we go.
Good morning, how are you? Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. We want you to take a chair and be comfortable, but I'm delighted that you came, and I'm really delighted that you're early risers in Iowa. Thanks for coming. I want to also just tell you that I'm very grateful that my wife Mary was with me the last few days on the campaign trail. She had to leave last night. One of the reasons she has to go back and forth is because back in Minnesota we have two teenage daughters. One of them is Anna, age 18, the other is Mara, age 15. They both like boys and one of them drives, so they need some parental supervision. But I know if Mary was here, she would want to say hello and thank you as well for coming. She'll be back on the campaign trail next week with us here in Iowa. Now, one of the reasons I like coming to Iowa, amongst other reasons, is because Iowa is one of the few places in the country still where I can tell my corny Ole and Lena jokes and people still understand what I'm talking about. So like in Minnesota, you've of course heard about Ole and Lena. You may have heard that in recent months they've been having some struggles in their relationship. They've been arguing, they've been bickering back and forth. And so Ole decided, my goodness, I better go get some counseling because things in the relationship with Lena aren't going so well. And so Ole goes and sees the counselor. And the counselor says, what's the problem? Ole says, well, we're arguing, we're bickering, things are really tense in the relationship. And the counselor says, oh, Ole, my goodness, I can fix this easily. I just want you to get some exercise. I want you to walk every day, 2 miles every day for 2 weeks, and you'll be just fine, 14 days. Ole says, okay, I will. And so he goes out the door, and 2 weeks go by, the counselor picks up his phone to call Ole. He reaches him on Ole's cell phone, and he says, Ole, how's the relationship going with Lena? Are things improving? There's a pause in the phone, and Ole says, well, how would I know? I'm 28 miles away from home. I share that story with you because it's just a little story about things getting off track, about drifting away from those things that we know matter most, that we know work, and that are established principles and stories of success. And I think it's a good lesson for America as well. You know that we've got a country that is in big trouble. The United States of America is headed in the wrong direction under this president. And those of us who see that and those of us who know it have to make sure we do everything we can to get it back on track. I'm running for President of the United States because I've got the experience and the leadership and the results and the skills and the vision to lead this country to a better place. But before I talk to you about the way forward, I want to first just spend a few minutes talking to you about how we got into this mess most recently. Now, one of the ways we got into this mess is we put the wrong person in the White House last time as President of the United States. Now, you'll remember he came through Iowa like an elixir salesman. He was telling you, all the Democrats here bought these big speeches that he was giving, the soaring rhetoric, the fancy phrases, and he made all these big promises to America. And now we've learned some things 3 years from that election that I think it's important for all of us to keep in mind for the one coming up. Number one, it's important to put somebody in the Oval Office who actually has the experience and the skills to be President of the United States. Barack Obama was a community organizer. Barack Obama was a college professor. Barack Obama was in the United States Senate long enough to have a cup of coffee before it got cold. Now we made him President of the United States and leader of the free world and Commander-in-Chief. He obviously wasn't ready for the job. He obviously didn't have the skills and the abilities to hold that office and conduct himself at the highest levels needed to be successful. Number two, he's got the wrong ideas and a trail of broken promises. He's not only wrong, but he's leading America in a dangerous and misguided direction. Now let me give you a few examples. I won't go through the whole trail of broken promises, but let me give you a few. Remember when he was here in Iowa on the night of the caucuses? He stood here and said, you know, he's going to fix the healthcare system. And by the way, it is broken. We need to fix it, but we need to fix it the right way. The market force is not the government. But Barack Obama said he was going to fix the healthcare system with Republicans. As a candidate, he was against the individual mandate. Then he said he was going to make sure that he focused on cost containment. Then he went to Washington, D.C., became president, and he broke every one of those promises. He passed one of the most partisan, most misguided, worst pieces of legislation in the modern history of the country. And my friends, Obamacare should be repealed in its entirety, which was something better. He made a whole series of other promises that he broke. I won't go on, but let me give you a couple other quick examples in that regard. One is he became president, and a few months into his presidency, he said, you know, we really do have a spending problem. This is after he knew about the problems in the economy. And he said he would cut the budget deficit in half during his first term. He didn't cut it in half. He tripled it. And we're not even through his first term yet. And then the list goes on, and then he said, look, we got to pass the stimulus bill because the economy's in trouble. The economy's still in trouble. But remember, he said if you don't pass the stimulus bill, unemployment can go as high as 8%. Remember that? It didn't go to 8%. It went to 10%. Well, you get the idea. Now, we put somebody into office also who doesn't have the courage to lead and put forward the details and to lead the country. Now, you know some of the biggest challenges facing the country is our spending problem. The government's out of control. The President of the United States should lead this debate. The President of the United States should have the courage to step forward and be specific and clear on the leading challenges of the day, and one of those is government spending. So I'm going to offer you a little prize this morning, a sweepstakes, and I hope you'll participate. We're offering this all across Iowa. And the sweepstakes is this. If you can find Barack Obama's proposal on reforming Social Security in any detail, on Medicare or on Medicaid in any detail, or you can find any of his proposals specifically about how he's going to get the debt ceiling and budget situation under control, I will mow your grass. I will come to your house and I will mow your grass as a prize. Now this is limited to a 1-acre parcel. Or if you prefer, I will cook you dinner. You can use Google, the internet, anything you want, but if you can find any of Barack Obama's specific plans on how to reform or fix the spending problems in these areas, I will, if you play hockey, I'll play hockey with you and make sure you score a goal. But at the very least, I'll either mow your lawn or cook you dinner. The reason I'm confident I won't have to do that because you won't find it. And the President of the United States, we should not have to play come out wherever you are with the leader of our country on the most pressing issues of the day. So we got a lot of work to do, and this is about more now than just talking about what he did wrong. It's also about our party and our candidates and me running for President of the United States telling you what I'm going to do for the country to the positive. Now here's some things we need to focus on. Number one, we got to get this economy moving. And for most people in Council Bluffs, and most people in Iowa and Minnesota and all across this country, the number one factor, whether they're going to have access to economic opportunities, whether they have a job. And we need to do those things that are going to make it more likely, not less likely, that jobs are going to grow in Council Bluffs as well as in Iowa and all across the country. And Barack Obama doesn't have a jobs plan. All he's got is a campaign plan. He's been there been there over 3 years. We're going on 3 years. This plan clearly isn't working. We have way too many people across Iowa and across this country who are hurting, unemployed, underemployed, can't make ends meet, can't pay their mortgage, are worried about their family's future. And they know, and we know, we need to do those things that are not going to grow government, but are going to grow the private economy, grow jobs. And Barack Obama doesn't understand that his central planning doesn't work. What does work is free markets and free enterprise and freedom. And so when we talk about how we're going to grow jobs, it's not rocket science. You go talk to the people who want to start and grow businesses and provide jobs and ask them, what are those things we can do that would make it more likely that you'll grow and expand? And guess what they say? Every day, everywhere, all across the country. They say, Governor, get the government off my back. And some of them talk about taxes, some of them talk about regulations, some of them talk about the crushing weight of energy costs and fuel costs. Others talk about the misguided government policies in healthcare and the cost that that's putting on businesses and more. But they all say the same thing: you got to make the load lighter, not heavy. Now, what the Democrats don't understand is they say, hey, we're for jobs too. Well, you can't be pro-jobs and anti-business. That's like being pro-egg and anti-chicken. I don't know how that works within your case, but I don't think you have eggs unless you have chickens. So we need to make sure these businesses are growing. And one important thing, there's about 6 million businesses in the United States. 5.9 million of those 6 million have 500 employees or fewer. So most of the economy is in small and medium-sized businesses. So this is about making sure we have more of them. It's about making sure that those small and medium-sized businesses are growing. So I have the most specific, most aggressive, most bold, pro-job, pro-growth, pro-investment proposal and plan of any candidate in this race by far. I gave it at Barack Obama's place of former employment, the University of Chicago, and it's all on our website at timpawlenty.com. But the Reader's Digest version of it is this: take the business tax rate from one of the highest in the world to one of the best in the world, from 35% down to 15%, one rate. But in exchange for that, clear out as many of the deductions, credits, exemptions, and special deals and loopholes that businesses get, so their ability to compete in the marketplace will depend on their ability to connect with customers, not their ability to lobby or influence or buy off their member of Congress. We want a flatter, simpler, fairer tax system in that regard. In the individual tax system, we take it from 6 rates down to 2. And in my proposal, we call for the elimination of taxation on dividends, on interest, on capital gains, and on the estate tax. And then we go through and talk about what it's going to take to get the spending under control as well. We also talk about the need to have an American rather than Middle Eastern energy policy and all of the above approach to energy, getting healthcare fixed the right way, not through government, but like we did in Minnesota, using market forces. Also the need to fix our regulatory system to make it more pro-job, and much more. I hope you'll read it. But I want to just tell you one other thought before I close. And that is, look, there's a lot of issues that you're going to be concerned about and should be concerned about. And most Republican candidates are going to come through town and tell you many of the same things. They're going to say, hey, look, I'm going to be for reducing spending. They're going to say, I'm for reducing taxes. They're going to say, I'm for school reform that focuses on parents and accountability. And they're going to say they're for private sector health care reform and public employee compensation reform. They'll say they're pro-life. They'll say they're for pro-traditional marriage and pro-immigration reform and the like. But I hope that you listen to that and you think about a few things. I hope you just don't say, gosh, they all sound the same. There isn't any difference. Well, there are some important differences. One of which is, I hope you'll ask, have they actually done any of it? Because as we learned with Barack Obama, there's a big difference between flapping your jaw and talking and actually getting stuff done and leading and getting results. So we're driving all over Iowa, 1,100 miles last week and about the same this week, on the Road to Results tour, and the point of it is this. Any bobblehead can stand up here and give you the checklist of Republican approaches on issues. Anybody can do that. The question is, can you lead? Can you get it done under difficult circumstances? Can you put your shoulders back and your head down and drive it to conclusion? So if you go look at my record as governor of Minnesota, here's what you'll see. Number one, an executive under difficult circumstances Two, you'll see spending that went from historic highs to historic lows. You'll see taxes that were cut net over 8 years, even though we had the effects of 2 recessions during that 8-year period. We were one of the first states in the nation to move from seniority pay to offering performance pay for teachers statewide. We did healthcare reform the right way, no individual mandates, no government takeovers. We did public employee compensation reform before it was the cool and popular thing to do. We did it years ago. We did some of the most forward-leaning immigration reform to crack down on illegal immigration in the country. I did welfare reform, lawsuit abuse reform. We moved the needle for the pro-life movement further and farther and better than any governor in the modern history of the state. I appointed conservative justices to the Minnesota Supreme Court for the first time. We have a majority of conservative justices on the Minnesota Supreme Court. And I was the co-author of the Defense of Marriage Act in the Minnesota legislature to make sure that marriage is defined in our laws as between a man and a woman, and on down the list. So the point that I share with you that is when others have looked at that record, they said it's one of the best records of a conservative governor in the country by far. In fact, the Cato Institute, which is a libertarian conservative think tank, gave only 4 governors in the country an A grade for their work on fiscal leadership. The other 3 aren't running for president. The other 3 aren't even thinking about running for president. So one of the things I offer to you is not just more political speeches, not just more people flapping their jaw, not just more Barack Obama, soaring rhetoric. We've had enough of that. It doesn't work. Soaring rhetoric doesn't put gas in your gas tank. It doesn't put food on the table. It doesn't pay your mortgage. It certainly doesn't pay your health care costs, and down the list. We don't need any more fancy speeches. What we need is results for America and get this country moving. That's what I did in Minnesota. That's what I'll do as President of the United States. So I want to thank you for coming tonight today. I really appreciate it. And always remember, that this is the greatest nation in the history of the world, not because of our bureaucracy, but because of our people. We're the greatest nation not because we're the biggest place in population. We're not. We're not the cheapest place, although we do need to be more competitive. We're the greatest nation the world's ever known because we're the freest place. And when government comes into our lives and takes over more and more and more of it, they not only grow their budget, they not only expand their footprint, they do something else that's really corrosive. They weigh down, they discourage the American spirit. And that's what's been happening over a lot of decades, and Barack Obama has made it exponentially worse. And those of us who know that, those of us who see it, have to rise up and fight back. This is our opportunity now to do that in 2012. We've got a tremendous opportunity to do this. Barack Obama's numbers nationally aren't very good. If you look at his numbers amongst independents in the swing states that are actually going to decide the election, his numbers are awful. If the election were held today, he not only would be beaten, he'd be beaten comfortably. So the main way we're going to goof this up as a party is to nominate the wrong candidate. I want to assure you the American people will expect that the person we put in that office has executive experience and a record of results on the things that matter most to the country and to conservative common sense principles. I can deliver that for our party and lead this country to a better place. I hope you'll join our cause. I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.